It's Well, hey, welcome back to the Riverside Real Estate Success Podcast. My name's Chris Mueller. A little different format this month. Normally, or this week, I guess. Normally, what I do is interviews with guests in studio from the local Riverside area. Today, I am very excited to be bringing on a guest from far outside the Riverside area. John Ray Perkins is a guy I've known a long time. In fact, the first time I was ever invited to speak at a national event, I was paired up with this guy I'd never met before. We were talking about team building. This guy from Louisiana, John Ray, and he instantly became one of those people who are like, I want this guy in my life. He's just such a good dude. Every time I bring him up around the house, my wife goes, oh, John Ray. Like, she just loves him to death. And John Ray has been on an incredible real estate journey over the last 2 years. As I mentioned, he has a ministry background. And if you're familiar with that, ministry is one of those things that you do for passion and for love and not for money, because the money is not always very thick in it. And so John Ray found himself in a situation where a little crisis came on the family. The money did not meet the month. And he'd had a buddy who'd been telling him for years to get in real estate, and he did. And I think it's safe to say his life changed. So I'm going to bring on John Ray now. Here's John Ray Perkins. And there you go. John Ray, welcome.
Hey, Chris, how's it going?
It's going well, man. I'm excited to do this interview with you. We've been talking about it forever, and so it's about time.
I'm excited to be here. I did not realize that was your first national speaking event as well.
Yeah, man. Oh, yeah, that was the biggest deal in the world.
You were like a polished pro, and I felt like I was all over the place.
Oh, dude, it was a mess. It wasn't you. It wasn't me. It was just that was.
I remember listening to it and the uhs that I said. Like, I was like, they're never going to ask me to speak again. This was horrible. And the next year I get asked to give a talk on giving talks. I was like, they must have not listened to that.
Yeah, the talk on giving. That's the worst talk to have to give, is a talk on giving talks.
It was horrible.
Talk about your preparation. I don't know. I just kind of wing it. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Amen to that.
Yeah, man. Well, good deal. Well, John Ray, I'm excited to have you on. I know a little bit of the backstory, but tell me about it. Tell us about it. Tell us how did you get in real estate? What was the before that brought you to real estate sales?
So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like what you were saying. You nailed it. I did. I say that like it was like I did time. I did 20 years in youth ministry, almost 2 decades as a full-time youth minister. I was a kid when I started. I told my pastor he should have never hired me. Fortunately, he took a chance, and I grew into, he poured a lot into me. I think, we would all agree that if it was not for a mentor, I don't think we would have ever had success in ministry. And fast forward, it's 2019. Back up a little bit. About 4 years prior to me getting into youth ministry, my sister-in-law started at Keller Williams. I thought, man, that's cool. Like I chatted with her about it. Alicia and I have always been handy around the house. Who doesn't watch real estate and keep their eye on the market? I love houses. In fact, after I got licensed, I realized that I sold the house next door to me twice with no commission, because, the neighbor was moving. I got my sister-in-law in it, because I wanted to pick my neighbor. And then when my sister-in-law sold, I got a buddy in it. And so I was like, oh yeah, I was good at this before I was doing it.
Right.
And so I decided at that time, 4 years prior to my license, that it just wasn't for me. Somebody told me, I talked to a buddy of mine that was dual career because I didn't want to leave ministry. And he said, man, it's just, you get a phone call at 2:00 in the afternoon on a Sunday at a family barbecue, and you got to drop everything, go show a house. I was like, that's not for me. Today, what I realize is you don't walk into a heart surgeon's office and demand an appointment. You set your schedule, and sure, there are clients out there that want you to drop everything to show a house. And sometimes those clients just might not be my clients,
Right.
So fast forward 4 years, I decided at that time I was going to start speaking at a higher level, and kind of ramping up my Catholic speaking, because I could set that schedule, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would be going all the time, but at least we knew I was going all the time. It wouldn't be a spur of the moment thing. And so in 2019, we ourselves not having to pay for Christmas outside of our speaking money. Like, so the speaking money was just going into savings. And in May, we had like a little nest egg. It was the most that we ever had. I think it was like $4,000 or $5,000. And we have 4 kids. We've been married for 16 years, and I mean, this is the first time ever as a Catholic youth minister that I had savings in the savings account. And then 2 vehicles broke and 2 kids got sick, and all of a sudden everything that we had worked literally a year and a half to put into the account was gone.
Yeah.
And I looked at my wife and I said, something's got to change. And she said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'm calling Wes. I'm going to go talk to him about real estate. So in June, Wes, who's our assistant team leader here and a dear friend of mine, we connected 20 years prior to that in ministry. Um, he and I got together. We were going to go have lunch, and we literally sat in his office and talked for 3 hours about real estate and what that would look like. And I remember he said, I think very quickly real estate's going to become the main thing, and your church job will become, the side hustle. And I was like, no, man, I love ministry. Like, I can't see myself out of it. And literally this month I went part-time at the church.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's unbelievable. And I just want to underline a couple things, right? Because for people who are not necessarily coming from a ministry background, $5,000 in the bank was the biggest nest egg you'd had up to that point, right?
Oh yeah. I mean,
and
I tell people to give this perspective. Sorry, not to cut you off.
No, please.
A buddy of mine was in a relationship, and his ex-girlfriend now, but they were really talking about marriage, asked me, like, how do you do it financially with 4 kids in ministry? And I told her, I said, look, I can tell you honestly, I've never wondered how we were going to pay a bill, but there's been a million times where I wondered how the bill got paid, because there was never enough money in the account, but God is faithful.
Well, and that's the point. It's not that you guys are living on credit cards, you're living above your means. It's that you manage to manage that little bit of money, and God gave the rest, right? Mm-hmm. But there was a point where the Lord basically said, okay, now's the time to pull the chute, right? Or here's a door I want you to walk through. And I love it. There's so many times in my life where God said, here's a door to walk through, and I'm like, no. He says, no, really, no. And finally he just kicks me through it. And I'm like, all right, fine. And it's like, you wanted to bless me, darn it,
Yeah. If you heard the story 4 years prior to that, he had put it on my heart, and it was a fear, a doubt, a wonder, or whatever, a worry that it wasn't real, that kept me from entering into this world,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you got your license, that's 2 years ago. Was that 2020? Was that
September of 2019? It's August 27th of 2019. My license went active. And fun fact, Life Team paid for my license. I did summer camp, and that's what financed my real estate courses.
All right. So if you don't know what Life Team is the largest Catholic youth ministry organization in the country. John Ray, both and I served in a lot of different capacities. And so speaking at summer camp, paid for your real estate license. So what happened? I mean, because I watched from a distance, right? And it seemed like overnight things just took off, but I know that can't be what happened. So tell me how you got started. Where did the business come from? What happened?
So when I talked to Wes that day in his office, he said a couple of things. And the one thing that stuck with me that actually kept coming up as Alicia and I discerned if this is the direction our family was going to go in, he said, I want you to think about all the people that you've done ministry with over the last 20 years. He said, all the young people, their families, he said, and here you are selling real estate. And now they know you're selling real estate. He said, they're absolutely going to, get in touch with you once they know you're doing this, and they're going to buy and sell real estate with you. He said, that's going to happen. He said, so let's put that on the shelf. And he said, I want you to think about how many people who you're going to be reunited in their lives, have they're angry at God, or, they've fallen away from the church, or they're in a bad situation, or they've gone through an ugly divorce, or whatever it is. He said, and now you're back in their life. And Chris, when I tell you, like, that has happened so many times, like countless times, with people that I still have not transacted with, that's been really cool. And what I've realized in this journey is real estate is a ministry. Like
Yeah.
it's helping people and it's counseling people and it's holding their marriages together or watching them fall apart and praying with both parties. And, like it's all the things. And so when I started my journey, and so Wes and I met in July and in June, and in July I started my classes, and Wes pushed me to be on social media, which is how you follow my journey.
Mm-hmm.
I knew about social media. I maintained the parish's social media. I maintained the youth ministry social media. I mean, in Catholic youth ministries with the shoestring budget, you kind of have to do everything, and so you learn to be an expert at social media because that's where the young people were. And I didn't want to be that real estate agent that was just like, hey, Lee, I'm selling a house. I want you to come and buy a house. Or, I mean, we've all seen that real estate agent on
Mm-hmm.
social media. And Wes was like, so don't be that guy. It's like, figure out how to do it. And one of the first things that I did, I was taking the math portion of the real estate exam, and I took a picture of it and I put it on my Facebook. And I said, I want to thank my high school math teacher for teaching me, for making real estate math so easy or whatever. Right. And that's kind of how people begin to know that I'm now moving in a new direction. Then my license goes active, and almost instantaneously, I have my first listing. It was kind of unfair, though. My wife's aunt's a builder. She had a house she had built 10 years prior. She had been renting it out. She was ready to sell it. She held it so that I would have a listing. So we put it, and I think it was on the market 73 days before we found the buyer. I double sided that transaction. We found the buyer at the very first open house that I hosted and stayed in touch with that buyer, and they finally made an offer. That closed December 23rd of 2019. So I had my first two closings because it was double sided in one transaction in September of 2019. Found out from my CPA yesterday that as I was trying to get approved for a house, and I needed that to be a positive, not a negative.
Yeah.
But it all ended up working out.
Now it's
And
it's
so,
fun. Let me break real quick, but like I love it because your first deal came from exactly where you'd expect it to come from: family, friends, people who know, love, or like you, who already trust you, right?
yep,
Who want to see you succeed. And I love Wes's counsel of, listen, John Ray, there are people who are going to be excited to do business with you because they know you, right?
yep,
And man, how many new agents just shy away from talking to the people who know, love, or like them because they fight this imposter syndrome,
yep,
when literally the majority, the easiest, the low hanging fruit are those people who already see you as someone who they trust, who they like, who they love, who served them in a different capacity. And now they want to see you succeed,
yeah,
absolutely.
exactly. No, it was and we all fight with it. I fought with it as a youth minister. I fight with it as a real estate agent. Heck, I fight with it as a husband and a father.
Right.
So, but while I was working that transaction, Bold came around. I'm sure you're familiar with Bold being with Keller Williams. It's one of our coaching sessions. So if you're not a KW person, um, Bold is a 7 week coaching training, so to speak, where they hold you accountable to your work, and you got to make 100 contacts a week. That means you got to have 100 talk tos a week, and all the things. And hey, look, I'm going to own it. I hate calling people. That imposter syndrome. I don't like calling the people in my world. And so a lot of times I was, out and about meeting random strangers and handing out business cards and whatnot. And Wes convinced me to do Bold. I couldn't afford it. Like Chris, I hadn't had a closing yet. I was like, how am I paying for this real estate stuff? Like I don't have any money coming in. And he looked at me and he said, think about it as if you're borrowing money from your future self. And I was like, okay. And so I'm going to trust you here.
My
Um,
future self could be a deadbeat. How do I?
right. And so I
Yeah.
went through Bold, and I mean, Bold changed my life. It changed the way that I think. It changed my attitude. It changed the way that I speak to my kids. It's a whole mindset thing, and it changed the way that I showed up in my world. Today, I still work at St. Pius, and when I show up at St. Pius, people at the church ask me about real estate and are surprised to find out that I'm still employed at the church that I attend. Because now in my world, I show up as a real estate agent.
Mhm.
So I made a ton of contacts through phone calls, through face to faces, through social media. And January 2020 hits, and I write my second offer on a $100,000 townhouse. And then in February, I write my third, fourth, and fifth offer, and that a lot of that stuff was coming from that bold, the bold contacts. And then March of 2020 hits, and COVID is here, and the world shuts down. And I think with everybody else, we all freaked out. Like,
Yeah.
what does this look like? Or am I losing my church job? Like I picked a heck of a time to get into real estate. This is all over.
Yeah. I want to stop because this is your first year, your second month, and you jump into a program like Bold. And if you're not a Keller Williams agent, you're watching, Bold is intense. Like it is. John Ray,
Mhm.
you said it. It's 100 contacts a week, 100 real
Yep.
estate conversations a week. I mean, you're walking up to people in the
And if you don't do it, you get a foul. And if you get 4 fouls, you fail the class. And I'm thinking, I can't fail this class. I just paid $800 that I don't have to take a class.
I love
Like, I
it.
got to pass it.
But there are a lot of people who will spend the $800 and go, well, I did it. Right. Because they spent the $800 and they don't go
Yeah.
all in. Right. And I love I don't want to say desperation, but the commitment. Right. It was like,
Mhm.
I'm not going to throw away $800. I took that, that's a loan I took from the future. I want return.
I would say desperation. There was desperation.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I had to convince my wife to let me spend $800 we didn't have, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
so.
But there's a level of commitment here that I think, you have to point out that your success, and we didn't mention this, but John Ray, how many transactions did you do in that first year? We'll go through the story, but just give me some insight. How many transactions 2020?
So I'll say it in two different ways. I did 30 transactions for 5.2 million, I think, right at in my first 12 months. Of like, so August 27th to August 27th, I did 30 transactions. I would close out 2020 with 34 transactions, 6.3 million in total sales.
Mm-hmm.
I went on, and my social media took off because Wes and I was already working my social media, and then Wes and I went to it was called, not Marked Men. It was a retreat that he and I went on, weekend retreat. It was being held locally in the state. One of our agents told us about it. We went. It was probably one of the best men's retreats I've ever been on. I'll give him an endorsement. And on the way back, Wes's wife was also a rookie agent. We were both rookie agents. And so he was like, how fun would it be if y'all had like a rookie of the year competition, like between you and Jen and Pat, and there were a couple other agents in there. And he said, you should start trash talking that in our private page. I think he was trying to get his wife some motivation, who was crushing it in the real estate game at the time. And so it went from the private page to the public page. And the three of us, Jen, Pat, and I, started talking about rookie of the year publicly. And so, we were hashtagging rookie of the year 2020, and we had set a goal when we started working towards that. And it was a fun, friendly competition. I thought by July I was out of the game. Like, I thought I was done.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would find out in January at our awards banquet that I was rookie of the year for our market center. And rookie of the year is the first 12 months of production. And I would find that out. And then a few weeks later, I found out that I was rookie of the year out of 23 market centers for our region.
Yeah.
And just blown away.
Yeah. And so the reason I wanted to get that out there right in the beginning is, like, you don't, like, 34, did you say 34 units in the first year, or the first
34 units in my first full year? Yeah.
34 units your first full year? That is, I mean, but again, Bold the second month, just a total commitment, right? That's not a mindset of, well, I'm half in this, right? That you had to get all in for that to happen, right?
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. No, I mean, and as the world shutting down in March 2020 changed my church job. And Father made a commitment. Because of who he is. Like, I tell you, Chris, I have one of the best pastors in the world, and that's for another conversation at another time. But
We can do that on the Everyday Catholic podcast. Yeah.
there you go. Yeah. And so he was set to keep us all whole. Right. He didn't want to cut any of our salaries. We didn't know what our collection. I mean, there were so many unknowns then, and we were at church every day, live streaming masses, because we pivoted to virtual, so when I'd finished live streaming masses, my wife and kids were at home, and I was in a closet at the church making real estate calls and getting calls, and interest rates dropped and people wanted to buy houses. And so, the Lord provided an opportunity for me not to be pulled in two directions.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah. Again, it's that door opens, right? And will you
Yeah.
walk through it? So you're in the closet making phone calls. Like, how many contacts a day are we talking on those phone calls?
I mean, we were shooting for 20. I can't tell you that every day I made 20 contacts, right? There was a minute where Pat and I, so Pat is the other, one of the agents, and we were both mentored by the same agent, who actually is one of my former students from
Ha,
when I was a youth minister. And so the three of us are now in a group text, and we grab lunch together, and we support each other's businesses, and we, voice we celebrate our wins, and we cry when we have losses. And at that time, Pat and I started a competition that lasted a couple of months, that if we didn't make our 20 contacts in a day, then we had to start paying into the other person's company dollar. For those of you who aren't KW, we were in competition for Rookie of the Year. Company dollar is what determines Rookie of the Year. So, like, if I didn't make 20 contacts, I had to pay $5 into Pat's. And if he didn't make 20 contacts, he had to pay $5 into mine. It lasted a few months. It didn't last for the rest of the year, but it was a thing for a while. We would take a picture of our contacts and text it into the group each day for accountability.
cool. I love that. And I love it because there's a mindset in a lot of realtors that I'm an independent contractor, so I'm a lone wolf, right?
Mm.
But people are communal animals. Like, we form tribes, right? And we do
Yep.
better when we support, when we have community, when we share our goals, we share our struggles, and just a little bit of a sand in your, just a little sand, and just like, are you gonna pay $5 towards my achievement if you don't make your goal?
Yep.
I love that, man. That's such a cool way to do it. Now, whose idea was that?
I don't remember where that came from.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I don't remember, but I don't remember if Pat said it, if I said it. I don't know. I think we were trying to motivate each other and figure out a way to keep that motivation. So
Nice. So, okay, so you did bold. You got in the group with the three guys, and you motivated each other. You had the competition for top producers. That carries you. I mean, first year. Anything else from that first year? I mean, what about marketing? What about how were you? Database. Any insight into that, or how were you using those tools at that point?
So we have Command. It's the database that Keller Williams built. I did run some campaigns, but if I'm being honest, I'm not really good at converting leads, through paid campaigns on Facebook or Google and that kind of
Sure.
stuff.
Sure.
And so, like, I just literally, today, and if I'm being honest, I never fully committed to making phone calls. I would make my 20 contacts, and a lot of times those were talk tos in the stores or whatever. I work my social media like a database. I work my social media like a business. And I took some classes in 2020, right before the world shut down, on how to trick the logarithms in Facebook by interacting with comments and asking questions and getting people to comment, and all those things. And I post in different categories in my life. I mean, my wife has blessed us with 4 beautiful children, and they are, we're always doing something. And so I post about family. I still post about my faith because it's who I am. Obviously, I post real estate all the time. And then I have hobbies, like I love to hunt. My son's picking it up, and so I'm constantly posting about different categories, because I never want to be the, hey, let me know if you want to buy or sell a house. And
Right.
I do ask that question every now and then.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you make a strong point. Like, people want to do business with people, right?
Hmm.
No one wants the real estate automaton.
Hmm. Yep.
They want to have a relationship with somebody. I mean, I go to my barber because he's a friend, and I go to my mechanic because he's a friend. I go to my realtor,
Yep.
well, it's me, because I'm a friend. You know, but it's true, and I love what you said. I work social media like a database, right? And
Yep.
because that's a different approach, right? Most of us get sucked into the black hole of social media, and we become consumers, and we're not intentional about our interactions. And then we feel like we worked, and we didn't. We just sort of death scrolled, right? Doom scrolled, and nothing really
And
happened
it's like
there
4 hours went by and I
for
didn't
us.
do anything. Yeah.
So when you say you work it like a database, what does that mean? What does that entail?
So every morning I have a quote that I put up on weekday mornings. So it's a system, right? Of course, I post my closing day pictures. Like there's going to be a couple that go out there. I closed on an investment property today, and I have a closing with a client this afternoon. Um, Pre-COVID, we were taking pictures with a bell. We'd stand there and held a sold sign. Somebody take a picture. COVID, people couldn't be around, and so I started taking selfies a lot, and that's kind of become the thing at 41 years old. I take selfies. My kids hate it. My friends hate it. My friends make fun of me because I do it, and I'm like, dude, it's paying the bills. But and so my effort is to have at least two, if not three, posts a day. I've learned to work my stories because Facebook gives you a boost if people interact with your stories. And so, the psalm of the day typically goes in my story, or another verse from the daily readings. So if it wasn't the psalm that spoke to me, but there was something else, like this morning came from 1 John 4, just talking about, how we have to love others. And then I've noticed people sharing memories into their stories. And so it's a cool thing for me. Like after I finish my prayer time in the morning, I'll go to my memories in Facebook just to see what happened last year and 5 years ago. And so I've started sharing those into, and really that's just a reminder to me of how God's been a blessing in my life through my family and through the things that I've been able to do. And it reminds people of who we are, and who we've been. And so I get interactions there.
Yeah, no, I love that. The posting stories and memories. Okay, so what I'm hearing, and you didn't use this language, but what it sounds like to me is the social media calendar. You have a system. I mean, it maybe isn't laid out in a calendar such as that, but you said the word system, right?
Yeah.
Plan. We execute a plan. This is what you can expect. It's predictable. It's not haphazard for you, right? And that gives more predictable results, right?
Yep.
All
Well,
right.
and it puts me in your social media. Like,
Yeah.
like when Chris Mueller opens his Facebook account, John Ray's all over it.
No,
Am
yeah,
I right?
it's incredibly irritating. It's no, no, you are. You absolutely are. And I gotta tell you, I love it. I'm like your biggest fan. I mean, I reposted your
I
post from the
saw
other
that.
day.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. But no, and I do. I love it. So that's what you're posting. Now you mentioned also though,
Well, let me
question,
say this too.
interaction.
People want to get caught up in something that seems fun and exciting and an adventure, right? We want an adventure. And my goal is to try to make my real estate journey fun and exciting and an adventure, because then you want to be part of it.
Yeah. Well, and okay, I love that too. Big, and I keep saying this, I love that. I do. But most people think I've got to show up like I have all this experience, like I'm this guy, like I'm the and you showed up as like, hey, let's go on an adventure,
Yeah.
and people just got on board. They wanted to be part of the story of your success, and then they enjoy celebrating it with you, and they enjoy the milestones, and they enjoy all that. And it's one of if it's like a Mueller law, right? Everybody, if you go through life assuming people want you to succeed, what you will find is a lot of people who want to help you to succeed. If you go through
Hmm.
life assuming that everybody's out to get you, guess what? That's probably what you'll find, right?
Yep.
And you went in with this assumption of I'm just going to go on an adventure and invite people with me, and they're like, I'm going to get my shoes, let's go,
Yeah.
and it's
I
beautiful.
can, I can't walk I can't walk anywhere really. I literally had somebody get out of their car and say, hey, look, it's John Ray. I mean, and you follow me. And that's the line that,
Yeah,
another agent gifted me with. So,
yeah,
um, yeah, people want to be part of something fun, and I just try to make it fun and exciting.
yeah. I was, it sounds so silly, but along these lines, I was at Disneyland with my kids a couple months ago, and I was just sitting there waiting for my kids to get out of the bathroom because I'm a dad and I've got 6 kids and I do that a lot.
Yeah.
And, and I just looked
Life.
around and I went, what if I just had a mindset of everybody here is a friend? I may not have met them yet, but everybody here is a friend. How does that change the way I interact with people in line? How does that
Hmm.
change the way I interact with people as I'm walking through crowds? If you go through your life, everybody here is just a friend I haven't met yet. How does that change your interactions on the freeway or at the supermarket? Or how does that change your approach to your real estate business, right?
I often get asked by my children when we walk out of a grocery store or a convenience store or a gas station or whatever, did you know that person? And
Yeah.
I'm like, no. Well, I mean, it seemed y'all were having a conversation like y'all have known each other forever because they're a person,
Yeah.
right? Like, and I think it's the youth minister in me. We're used to talking to strangers, so and
Yeah.
building relationships.
Yep. Absolutely. All right.
But I
So,
never know when that next relationship is going to be the next transaction. You know?
right. Right. And the difference is if you genuinely care about people,
Hmm.
then you generally care about them either way. Right.
Yep.
And that's, that definitely is something that sticks out, I think, in every interaction I've had with you. Okay. So social media, you talked about what you're posting. What about commenting? What about the interactions with other people? Like, so is it just your posting, or are you spending some intentional time commenting or reacting or, getting in other people's lives there?
Yes. So I spend time. So Facebook rewards you if you contribute, like, and they reward you if you interact. And so I interact with other people's posts, especially if somebody new shows up in my news feed. They're gonna for sure get a comment, 5 words or more, because the 5 words or more is a Facebook thing, and all of a sudden now I'm in their world because I commented on their post 5 words or more. And then if you take time to comment on my post, you are going to get an interaction, whether it's just a like or a heart. But I work really hard at making sure you also get a comment because Facebook rewards that as well. Now that may not be today. Like, I'm going to put a closing post up today, and I'm going to get some people that are going to congratulate me and whatever in the comments. Um, I might interact with them next week or 3 weeks from now because it's going to take that post and throw it back up in the news feed.
Yep. Very cool. All right. So that the social media has really been a powerful tool for you. You're not a big phone
Yeah.
call guy, but what do you say?
Well, I want to say this because there may be some new agents that listen, and most of my business has come from Facebook, and it's come from Facebook because of the relationships that I built as a minister over the course of 20 years. Not everybody has that influence on their social media. You should work your social media like a business, and you should also do all the other things. You should do the phone calls. You should do the conversations. You should figure out what's going to work best for your business.
Yeah.
Facebook happens to work really well for mine.
Yeah. And I love that. And it's true. You have, I mean, come on now, John Ray. How many? It sounds kind of crazy. I made this realization the other day as leading a market center, a brokerage out here in Riverside, that I'm having a lot of success working with people who were basically the kids I had in youth group over the years. Right, that's because they all
Yeah.
grew up. Right now, this is who I'm
Yep.
working. And how many people in your sphere of influence who are buying houses or having babies or doing all those, getting married, all that stuff, for people who knew you as John Ray, the guy who introduced me to Jesus.
Yeah.
Um,
No, absolutely. I
and
get referrals from church people that I've never transacted with.
yeah. Yep. And that's not, it's funny because that's just, I'm just John Ray. Like you're just John Ray, and the same John Ray in this context as you were in that context, just the same guy. There's no, like, I'm using this for that. It's just, no, it's just who I am. In every sphere of my life, you're going to run into the same guy.
And I also find that people, I think the creepy real estate agent, we'll call him, that's on social media that's always asking, isn't authentically who that person is, right?
Right.
Whether it's a guy or and I am very mindful to be I had one transaction in April of 2020 where I was under contract with a buyer who was a former student. And I was in some class and they were teaching us scripts, and I used the script, but I hadn't personalized the script. And I came across as that creepy person, and they fired me.
Mm.
And I decided that day, like, it was the worst thing that has happened to me in real estate so far. But it changed me. And I've actually sent them thank you cards, and for just being honest with me and having a difficult conversation, and for firing me, because it made me realize that I never want to be something that I'm not in order to make a transaction happen.
Yeah. I had a conversation with an agent the other day for the podcast, and he had said something to the effect of, it's not about having all the experience. It's about bringing the experience you have. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, you said, like, the language, scripts, dialogue, these are really important tools, but you're not a real estate automaton. You're you.
Correct.
And
Yep.
it's important so that you can start shaping the way you think, you can shape your mindset, you can just be a little prepared. But if you're just giving out rote prepared lines that aren't authentic to who you are, then you're alienating people.
Exactly.
Yep.
Well, and if you have that, if we have a new agent that's listening to things, man, I've never had a transaction before, and I had a veteran agent, say I overheard a conversation last week in the halls. He said, "Hey, look, the average person's going to buy and sell 3 to 5 times in their lifetime. So if you, as a new agent, know the process, then you already know more than the person that's never bought a house before,
Yeah.
and you know the process because it's been explained to you in a seminar somewhere."
Right. Right. And you know what? And this is something I say to new agents all the time too, and veteran agents. I mean, the reality is I sit in this office as a manager of a brokerage, and I have veteran agents who come in after 30 years and they go, "Hey, what do I do about this?" Right? Because it's
Yeah.
something they haven't encountered before. Or I have a contract that was filled out by somebody who should know better and they didn't fill it out right. Or they forgot, and it's just nobody's perfect. Nobody's
Nope.
all knowing. Right. And that's why you have a team to support you. That's why you put good people around you. And that makes a huge, huge difference. Hey, John Ray, let's get into year two. So year one, crushed at 34 units. And then year two, I feel like you might have done better.
So I did a uh, what's the word that I'm looking for, Chris? It's a KPA.
Okay. Yep.
I did a KPA at the end of 2020 because I was considering making my first hire. I was thinking I might need an assistant. Business was good. They teach us, a single agent could do 42 transactions on their own. Once you get over 42, then and so I did the KPA and found out that I have absolutely zero sense of urgency, none at all whatsoever. Now, that was not a earth shattering, piece of information in my world, but my MCA and my assistant team leader looked at me and said, "I think you would be better off hiring a coach than hiring an assistant." And
All
so I
right.
was like, "Okay, cool,
Let me define a couple terms real quick because you're
sure, thanks."
little Keller Williams
I,
inside baseball here, and that's fine. But
yeah, yeah,
so the KPA it's a Keller personality assessment, right? And it's really revealing. I mean, I've done it. I brought mine into my wife, and I was like, "What do you think? This is ridiculous." She's like, "Nope, that is exactly who you are."
hmm
It's a lot of fun to do. So you did that, and it said no urgency. You just sort
no
of,
sense of urgency.
and I think that's probably true. You roll with it. I mean, there's
Yep.
just sort of like what, and what may come comes, and you do the best with what you got, and you just yeah. So
If you would ask my high school teachers when I was in high school, if at 41 years old I would still procrastinate until the last minute, they would have probably told you absolutely.
Yep. So you did so now you're MCA, and that's a market center administrator. That's essentially it's the chief financial officer of a
Yeah,
market center, right?
the money man.
Exactly. So that person and Wes, they both said you need a coach. So that is that.
Mhm.
So did you then do that?
I did. I went and talked to our OP, another KW term, basically, essentially our COO of our market center. He was taking on some clients, and he's good at helping a person probably go from a single agent to a fourth level team, which is going to have a administrative assistant and probably a transaction coordinator and probably a showing assistant at that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so he asked me what my goal was for 2021. And I was like, I don't know. What do you mean goal? And he was like, well, what are you going to work for? What was your goal for 2020? I said, I want to sell 10 houses to pay for Catholic school tuition. I closed 34. So I tripled my goal. I did great. Woohoo. And he was like, so what's the goal for 2021? And I said, I don't know, 60. And he said, why 60? I said, because it's doubling what I did. And I mean, why not try to double what I did? And he said, so what does 60 do for you and your family? And I said, what do you mean? He said, because it can't be about the money. Like the money's not going to drive you to do it. So what does 60 units do? I was like, I don't know. We kind of talked about it. He said, I think you need to go on a date with your wife. And I was like, and y'all need to have a conversation. So text my sister-in-law, got her to watch the kids, text my wife and said, I got reservations at this restaurant tonight. We need to. We sat, Chris, I thought you probably have experienced this. We tried to dream. Like if money wasn't an option, what do we do? Right. And we had been on a nonprofit salary our entire life. She was a school teacher and I worked for a nonprofit, and we couldn't dream. Like, I was like, and so then I was like, okay, so if we could give away this much money to charities and help people, and we couldn't even wrap our head around what that would look like. And I just looked at her and said, well, what would it look like if you stayed home? Like, what if we had the opportunity for you to step out of the classroom and be a mom? And then we ended the conversation. It was a great dinner, and we never revisited it. And Sunday rolls around. This is a Monday night. Sunday rolls around, and I overhear her telling her mom and her siblings, because we're at family lunch. John Ray and I are talking about maybe this might be my last year of teaching. And I was like, whoa, oh,
I love that.
like,
Well,
she's
hold on
serious.
now. We were just having dessert. That was just,
Yeah.
that was the drinks. That was not what
Yeah. And so we got home that night,
Yeah.
and I said it again. Like, I put out a spreadsheet. I was like, all right, here's what we need to live off of. And if money wasn't an option, how many vacations are we going on this year? Like, what does that look like? And we just started dreaming. And by this point, I think we had kind of opened our minds just a little bit. So we did all the math, and we figured out what my commission income would be after taxes and all of that. The 40%, they give us a model for that. And so we use the 40%, after expenses and taxes, and the money didn't add up. And I looked at her, I said, well, if this is 2021, then you got to keep teaching. And she was deflated.
Mm.
Like, I don't know if she realizes what I saw. And I was like, whoa, this is a thing. So Monday, I'm back in my coaching session. He said, so what does 60 do? I said, 60 keeps Alicia home. And he said, okay, how much money do you need in the bank in order to be comfortable with her stepping out? And I looked at him, I said, it's already there. Like, I was working and she was working in 2020. Neither one of us lost income, and my business took off and we didn't spend it. It's already there. So I walk out of that session, and Wes looks at me and he says, so what's going on? I was like, I think my big why is Alicia retiring. And Wes looked at me and said, he asked the question, what's the thing, John Ray, that you have to choose not to do that would require Alicia to sign her contract and go to school another day? And I mean, that hit me like, boom, this is on me. Like, I have to choose not to have conversations with people. That's sisterly what I have to do. I have to choose not to find leads, not to talk to people, and not to transact with people. And so we set the goal at 60. I went into 2021 with a lot of listings. In fact, my story this morning, my memory this morning said 5 days into the month, and I already have 9 pendings. I closed 13 in February of 2021 for $3.2 million in sales volume. Pat was really mad at me that month and congratulated me a lot. I, but I went home that night after talking to my coach, and I said, I flipped open the calendar, and Alicia said, what are you doing? I said, what's the last day of school? And she said, man, I just got emotional. She said, May 28th. And I wrote on the calendar, Alicia's last day of teaching. And she said, huh? I thought we decided we couldn't do that. And I said, and I decided in my session today that I think we can. And I said, what's the worst that could happen? We fall on our faces at the second half of 2021, and you go back to teaching in 2022, and she said, I guess so. And she said, but I sent my letter of intent today because you told me that I had to go back. And I said, is that a contract? How much is this going to cost me? And she said, no, it's not. And so I text Wes celebratory dinner on May 28th of 2021 and told him, thanks for pushing me. Alicia just stepped out of her teaching job. And it's been the biggest blessing that has ever happened to our family. The goal was that she was going to come work in our business, and she does some things.
Yeah.
But our family life has changed so much. We lost her dad in September, and her grandmother's on hospice. And like, it's been such a blessing to not have her work because of those things. And Chris, you got 6 kids. I got 4. Like, it's been such a blessing just to have her at home. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I want her working, so I would go on to close 59 units in 2021 for a total of 12.3 million, 12.6 million in sales volume.
So 59 units. John
So
Ray,
I missed my goal by 1.
well, you know what? We can't all be successful. So
Yeah, right.
59 units. So I love this, and I we're gonna kind of land the plane here, but so we were at a table where we couldn't afford to fix the truck, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah.
And 2 years later, we're in a situation now where your wife has said, "I want to be home with the kids," and you've got more than enough income to do that. I mean, we've talked about this probably. You've bought investment property.
Mm.
That truck, I think, is gone now. Is that correct?
It is.
You
Yeah,
know,
it is.
and your life changed. I mean, I
It
think
did.
that's a safe to say. And it's a credit to you, John Ray, because there are a lot of people who have big real estate dreams, and they think, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and then when it comes down to it, and they face that reality of having to put it out there, they just stop. They don't do it. You got into bold and you took it and you ran with it. You did your 100 contacts. You didn't get your I mean, you pressed it. You know what I mean? You made competitions with other people, and you gave yourself rewards, and you gave yourself consequences, and you did what you had to do to create this incredible lifestyle. And now we're in year two. We're in year two, and you've got this mega agent business. And so, I mean, I'm so proud of you. I can't tell you how much. I mean, oh, now I'm getting all anyway, but it was
I'm glad
emotional.
it's not just me.
You started it. But so where from here, man? Where are you going from here? What's next?
So I'm not in coaching with JD anymore, but he and I had a callway conversation, and he said, "What's your goal for 2022?"
Yeah.
60. And he said, "I thought your goal in 2021 was 60." I said, "It was." And I closed 59. And he said, "So why is it 60?" I said, "Because I didn't hit my goal." And he said, "What does 72 do?" He just asked the question. I said, 72 hires an assistant.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "Okay, so I think you should reconsider that." And then I bumped into him in the hall the next day, and he passes me up. He said, 84. I said, "Get out of here. 60."
Yeah.
And I texted him Sunday. And I said, the goal is 72.
Yeah.
At that time, I had 6 pending for January. I had 2 pending in March. And I think the goal is to hire an assistant. Alicia and I had lunch after the closing today, and talked about what that would look like. I've begun a conversation with somebody that I would really be interested in at least interviewing for the position. She's a fantastic agent, and she's everything that I'm not. She has urgency, and she's organized, and and it's not about, for me, it's not about um, it's not about growing a big business. I mean, the big business is going to be a big life, right? And the bigger the business, the bigger the life, the more we can give. Like, what I learned in 2021 is I like giving away money, and it's nice to be able to do it. But hiring the assistant, it's not just about growing the business. It's about changing somebody else's life. Like, it's about, can you have a big life with our big life?
Mm-hmm. I love it. I mean, I had an agent I interviewed the other day. He said something very similar, and I said, "That's the difference. That's the difference in being a successful team leader and failing at hiring employees, is when you say, I don't want to find someone to do the things I don't want to do. You say, I want to find someone who I can grow with, whose life can change, because of this relationship, who I can,
Mm-hmm.
I can take along on the journey." So I love it, man. Hey, last question, then we'll set this thing down. Um, how do you deal with, I mean, you're doing an incredible business. A lot of people will sprint, do an incredible business, and then just sort of sit back and they go, "Oh crap, I got to sprint again." Seems like you've been pretty consistent. What's your answer to that?
Constantly reevaluating my why and remembering that Alicia doesn't have an income, and I got 4 kids in Catholic school.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I mean, constantly reevaluating my why, and now if I'm going to up the goal, then there's got to be another why, and so let's change somebody else's life. Let's bring them into the business. Let's pay them a salary. Let's give them bonuses. Let's grow the business with them. And so it's keeping that at the forefront of my mind. Like, hey, if this is going to keep happening, then it's on me. It's not on anybody else. I hear agents say, "Well, I left this brokerage because I didn't feel like they were supporting me, and I went to that brokerage." And I'm like, we're all adults here. Like, nobody can want your business more than you do. And I tell my mentees that when they come in as new agents, like, I'm going to give you all the support that I can give you, but I can't want it more than you do.
Yep.
So if you don't want it, it's not going to be there. And so I want it. Yeah. I love what real estate has done for my family. I love helping people. I've done that all of my life. Yeah. So I want to leave a legacy for my kids.
Yeah.
And for their kids.
Cool. I love that. Radical ownership is what I just heard. There's a radical ownership of this business of that nothing's a guarantee. And so for my kids, for my wife, for the people I'll employ, for all of them, I can't sit back because it's on me and I have to keep leaning in. So, well, John Ray, it's been a treat, man. I love it. I would do this every day if I could, but you're far too busy now.
Well, let me know when you want to join up on Everyday Catholic. We can talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about the ministry side. Absolutely. So, but hey, man, thanks for coming on. And, if somebody wanted to reach out and just say thanks for the interview or get in touch with you some way, what would they do?
Probably is the easiest way would be to shoot me an email.
Okay.
John Ray at johnrayperkins.com.
All right. Awesome. Well, hey, this has been Chris Mueller for RiversideRealEstateSuccess.com. And I hope you enjoyed that interview with John Ray Perkins. He is, like I said, I'm immensely proud of John Ray and the success he's had and the inspiration that he's been to me. So, John Ray, thank you so much. And everybody else, we'll see you guys again next time. All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep. All right.